kept secrets in Toastmasters. This series of manuals gives us good pointers on how to improve our speaking skills, but it also tells us what to say, because the manual provides the content of each of the projects in the manual. So, unlike our normal speech manual, which gives you the program or the project and tells you what the objectives of the project are, and tells you how you'll be evaluated, and then leaves it up to each of us as Toastmasters to figure out that content, this little gem gives us the content itself, both in a printed form as well as in a PowerPoint presentation, if you care to use it. Another secret about this manual, if you go online to the Toastmasters International website and you look at the educational materials, and you look at these educational series manuals, guess what? You can order them for, I believe it's $6 a book, and Toastmasters International will mail it to your home in printed fashion, just like all the other manuals. Or, if you're industrious enough, you could download the item electronically as a PDF file and get the content, get this, for free. So yours truly, in preparation for tonight's meeting, what I did is I downloaded both the Better Speaker Series manual, 10 projects, as well as the Successful Club Series manual, which is another 11 projects, all of which I got for free, and in about less than 5 minutes of time to download that onto my laptop. So I'm ready for an awful lot of speeches in the future. I have an awful lot of content to give. In fact, some of you might remember back in, I think it was September, John? John gave a speech on the Toastmaster Mentor Program. As he had said that night, as I remember, he was prompted to be remembered, because I had sent the note out and said, here is the agenda, and John saw his name on the agenda, and like many of us, had forgotten that he was speaking. He quickly downloaded the content, and he actually gave us a phenomenal presentation on the Toastmaster Mentor Program. So it's great information, both from a knowledge perspective as also content to share with everyone. Now, one other thing I'd like to mention about this Better Speaker Series manual. As I said, there are 10 projects, and tonight the project I'm doing is Controlling Your Fear. Now, just to give you an idea of the content, the other 9 projects in the manual, they cover things like beginning your speech, or ending your speech, or how to do impromptu speaking. It's like all of us love table topics. There's a whole manual around what are the techniques around effective impromptu speaking. Selecting a topic for a speech. How often do some of us stay late awake on a Sunday night because we don't know what to say Monday evening? Or information on how do you know your audience, how to organize your speech, how to create an effective introduction, like we try to use with those introduction forms, and preparation and practice for your speech, and the one I like too, using body language. So those, with this Controlling Your Fear, are the 10 topics you can get from this Better Speaker Series manual. Now, another thing to note about this manual series, the educational series manuals, when a Toastmaster gives a speech from one of them, because you're getting the content from Toastmasters, the speech is not eligible for credit for any of the speeches you do from a manual. So it's not eligible for your competent communicator credit or for your advanced speech credit, except if you're going for your advanced communicator silver, which is the level that I'm progressing towards. The requirements for advanced communicator silver are you complete 2 advanced manuals, so it's 10 speeches. So first you've had to have done your competent communicator, 10 speeches. Then you've had to do 2 additional advanced speech manuals, 5 speeches each, 10 speeches. You become an advanced communicator bronze. And then if you're still drinking the Kool-Aid and want to progress, you do another 10 speeches from 2 advanced manuals. But you also have to do a speech from the Better Speaker Series and a speech from the Successful Club Series, or 2 from one of those manuals. So effectively you need 12 speeches to get to the Advanced Communicator Silver, 2 regular manuals, and then 2 of these speeches for these special education. So that's a lot of information around this particular manual. Now, what does the manual say to us? What great information might we learn from actually looking at this? Well, I found it real interesting. Now, controlling your fear. Show of hands, and let's be honest. How many of us sitting here in the room today, on occasion, may get a little jittery, a little fearful when coming up here and give a speech? Because I know I certainly do. So I'm glad to see we have a lot of honest Toastmasters here in the room. So what could we learn by reviewing this content? There are three things. The manual talks about what are the triggers to creating anxiety in a human before they're preparing for speech. What are those things that create anxiety in the individual? Then it says, what are the symptoms of that anxiety? How do you know you're actually having that anxiety, aside from fainting dead away? And thirdly, and probably most importantly, it gives us some information on how can you manage that anxiety so you can get past your fears, come up here and give a dynamite presentation to all of us here at Toastmasters. So that's the wonderful information that we can learn from the manual. So, anxiety. What are the triggers, if you will, of creating anxiety in an individual, specifically around when they want to come up and give a speech? Well, the manual gives us 4 real interesting items of the trigger. One is having to deal with new or unknown situations, especially for us new Toastmasters. Come up in front of the room, looking around this usually crowded room, luckily always with smiling faces and always attentive, because that's part of the role that we fulfill as being an audience member of Toastmasters. But that, as a human condition, that fear of the unknown is a trigger for anxiety. Here's an interesting one. Risk of failure. Who wants to come up here, suddenly look around the room, and then can't utter a logical word or a word that people will understand? Just the potential of that happening can create havoc in the individual. Thirdly, we don't want to appear foolish. We want to be able to speak intelligently. We want to be able to communicate effectively. So we have that fear that maybe we won't do that. And then finally, which never happens in Toastmasters, we don't want to bore the audience. We want to be able to connect with the audience. We want to have them wait on every word we say, and at the end, give us a round of applause and say, wow, that speaker did a good job. So those are the triggers that could create that anxious feeling in ourselves. Now, what are some of the symptoms? Well, we've all had these, I'm sure. A little bit of elevated heart rate. You kind of feel the heart beating in your chest. Or the favorite one that I have, the butterflies in the stomach. Especially since I've not been on my diet lately, those butterflies are getting bigger. And then here's a great one. Incontrollable shaking. Yeah. Who's had that happen?
Oh, yeah, sure.
In fact, I saw on PBS not long ago, there was a series on old comedic routines, and Don Knotts did one, that he was speaking in front of a group and literally couldn't get words out, couldn't drink a glass of water. It was one of the most phenomenal things to see. And in fact, many times we can kind of see similar things right here. A couple of others, lightheadedness and dizziness, all are also symptoms of anxiety. Now, how we manage anxiety? What can we do to alleviate or minimize anxiety? The manual tells us 3 basic things: experience, visualization, and relaxation. Experience, the phrase I always use is time and see. How do you learn how to do something better by not doing it? The more you do it, the easier it becomes, the more proficient you become at it, the less fearful you are of it. So again, those speeches that we do, there's some interesting techniques here where they say in preparing for your speech, speak in front of a mirror so you can see your information. Or speak in front of your families and friends. I'm sure we all have relatives who would just love to hear a speech from us. In my case, it's the dogs I usually talk to. Now, with visualization, this is an interesting thing. I'm going to be going over time. This speech was said to be 10 to 15. I'm trying to do 8 to 10, so I'm probably going to take a little more time up, but I'll wrap up as quickly as possible. What I liked about visualization is this is where the audience can actually participate. So what I'm going to ask is each of you close your eyes and listen to the scenario that will be presented here now. Because from what the manual says, research shows us that vividly imagining events are recorded as memories. And over time, your mind does not differentiate between a real experience and an imagined experience. So, picture this. It's Monday evening. You volunteered to give a speech 3 weeks ago. It is now the evening of your speech. You are prepared. And it is your moment on the agenda, and the Toastmaster today is giving you your introduction. So you are introduced to the audience by virtue of that expertly prepared speaker introduction form that you sent to the Toastmaster earlier before the meeting. At the completion of the introduction, you walk up to the lectern confidently, smiling to the audience as you take your position in front of the room. Then, you breathe deeply several times before beginning to speak. And as I say this, imagine yourselves actually breathe somewhat deeply and see the effect that it has in calming yourself. Now you're ready to speak clearly and forcibly, remembering all the points you wanted to make. Finally, you've done such a great job, you've captivated your audience with your words, your gestures, and your vocal variety. And the piece de resistance is you are given a rounding sound of applause from the audience, and you feel you've done the best job you can in Toastmasters, and you've connected with the audience in Toastmasters. So open your eyes and realize how great your speaking abilities are and how you can actually see that in your mind and help you perform better in front of the room. Now the third one, relaxation, I probably need a little help with. And there is a ringer in the room. My wife Lillian has been a yoga instructor for more than 10 years, and for that, Andy Newman has also been a yogi for quite some time. So I'm sure they're going to be familiar with some of these actions. But what I'm going to ask now is for everyone to get up. And what the manual tells us is that the mind and the body are connected. Oftentimes, by doing physical gestures, you can minimize or dissipate anxiety or tension in the body. Now, they have a couple of interesting things that they suggest. First, they say, let's focus on areas of concentrated tension. You know, in my case, one of them is the shoulders. How do you relieve tension in your shoulders? Well, if you kind of scrunch it up at the top and then release it, and you kind of do it 2 or 3 times, I know what you'll feel is this dissipation of tension in the body. Yoga master, is that a correct statement?
Well, you really don't want to do this. You just want to kind of roll.
Oh, you see?
Because when you do this, you tell your body to tense up. So you don't want to. You want to relax your shoulders, roll them back and down.
Proper way of removing relaxation. Removing anxiety. Stand, inhale, and stretch your arms. I know you can do this one. So if you're standing here, stretch your arms toward the ceiling. Now, I'm not going to do this, but you can certainly try. If you step back from your seats, fold forward and try to touch your toes. Now, these are all activities that can help in dissipating that excess energy in the body or that tension in the body. A couple of other things. They say, one of my favorites, drop your head forward, roll it to the left, to the back, to the right, and forward. You do that a few times and you see that if you're like me, you'll hear all this crunching sound. You get some of that excess tension out of your body. And then finally, one that I wouldn't say we practice here, but think about it at home, is they suggest you lie on the floor, you place a book in your stomach, you inhale deeply, and you're trying to breathe from your diaphragm. And then exhale deeply, and what you'll see, if you're lucky, is the book will rise with the inhale, and it will fall with the exhale. Now, why do you want to breathe from the diaphragm? Singers tell us this, actors tell us this. The more that you can breathe deeply, the stronger you're going to make your voice, the more you'll be able to project to the audience, and the more you'll get that energy and that sense of excitement in your speech. So you can all take a seat now. I hope you've enjoyed these little acrobatics that the Toastmasters are doing. So, how do we control our fear? One, we realize that when you come to Toastmasters, just as we read in our mission statement, this Toastmaster meeting gives us a mutually supportive environment for us to learn and to practice. Think of this as your collaboration. What is it that you want to do to improve your communication skills? And use this meeting when you speak, whether it's a prepared speech, or as a table topics, or as an evaluation. Use this as your opportunity to stretch your comfortability. The more you come up and do, the more you'll find that you feel comfortable in doing it, And the more you'll be comfortable starting to stretch out of that comfort zone and try new techniques. We're all on the journey to a great way of improving our communication abilities. I'm looking forward to hearing each of you speak using some of these techniques of reducing your tension. Thank you.